Not only did Russia send the first human into space, they also did at least 3 other firsts as well. Come on, America! Hey, curious kids, Kevin here. Today on A Place Called Space, we are talking about who was the first woman in space. She launched just 2 short years after Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space on April 12, 1961. This woman was also a cosmonaut, and her name is Valentina Tereshkova. She became the first woman in space on June 16, 1963, when she launched on the Vostok 6 rocket. This was yet another Soviet first, beating the United States to sending a woman to space. Valentina's flight lasted 71 hours, or about 3 days, as she completed 48 orbits of Earth. She spent more time in space than all of the NASA astronauts combined up to that point. Upon her re-entry, just like Yuri, she ejected at 20,000 feet and parachuted down to Earth. This was her one and only space flight, as she never went back. So the Russians sent the first man into space, and the first woman into space. This next cosmonaut gave Russia 2 additional firsts over the United States. Cosmonaut Svetlana Savitskaya was the first woman to fly to space twice, and on that second space flight, she became the first woman to complete a spacewalk. On July 25, 1984, Svetlana was outside of her craft performing welds for 3 hours and 35 minutes. So, to recap, Russia sent the first man, the first woman twice, and had the first woman spacewalk. They did a lot of other firsts too, like the first satellite ever and the first ever spacewalk. But now let's see where the United States and NASA is with women in space. NASA didn't send its first woman to space until June 18, 1984, more than 20 years after Russia. Dr. Sally Ride launched aboard Space Shuttle Challenger to become the first American woman in space after she answered a newspaper ad from NASA looking for savvy scientists to be mission specialists. She spent about 6 days in space for her mission, where she was also the first woman to operate the Space Shuttle's robotic arm. Dr. Sally Ride was also the first American woman to fly to space twice. Her second flight was on October 5, 1984, where she was joined by another female NASA astronaut, Catherine D. Sullivan. She became the first American woman to do a spacewalk on October 11, 1984. So far today, no women have been to the moon. Not Russian, not American, none. Only 12 men have walked on the moon. But NASA has promised with the Artemis program that a woman will be on the first flight back to the moon and to put her boot prints there in 2024. Now, on to trivia. The answer to last week's question of what is the belt of rocks out past Neptune called? It's B, the Kuiper Belt. This week's question is, what do we call the Earth-Sun distance? Is it A, ESD, B, a parsec, C, an astronomical unit, or D, a light year? Tune in next week to get your answer. Always be curious.